Fox News contributor, New York Times bestselling author, former congressman from Utah, Jason Chaffetz is with us. How are you, sir?
Hey, Sean. Glad to be with you.
All right. To me, the president would have the authority to declare this a national emergency just based on the numbers and based on what we're facing, drug trafficking, human trafficking, national security issues, gang members crossing the border, potential terrorists crossing the border. To me, that's part of the president's role as commander-in-chief, no?
Yeah, no, I do think he has that authority. You combine on top of that Congress previously, and including so many of the Democrats in the Senate, they've previously approved and authorized. So the building of a structure on the border is authorized by law by Congress. So it's not a big stretch to then reallocate some resources. It happens all the time in almost every department and agency, and the president clearly has the authority to do this.
But you look at the numbers, fiscal year 2017 and 18, ICE officers, and I know Democrats want to eliminate ICE, they have arrested approximately 235,000 aliens on various criminal charges or convictions within the interior of the United States. 4,000 of those homicides, 30,000 sex crimes, 100,000 assaults, 300 Americans, killed every week from heroin. Most of it, 90%, is flooding in from the southern border. How is that not a national emergency if you compare those numbers, 300 per week death toll as it relates to heroin? Well, that's more than American troops were killed in the year 1968 in Vietnam.
No, you're absolutely right. And Brandon Judd, who heads up the Border Patrol Union, I heard him say, and I visited with him personally today, more than 800,000 times the Border Patrol is going to apprehend somebody coming north across our border. That's how many 800,000 people are going to be apprehended. And they're guessing, they're just guessing, Sean, that they're only getting one out of every two. So there's another 800,000 that are successfully coming across the border. That's how bad it is. These guys are asking for an impediment, a wall, a barrier to help them do their jobs. The president is on the right side of this issue.
What is the difference between Obama just deciding on his own to open up the banks and send $1.7 billion to the Iranian mullahs without any congressional approval, or, Obama lifts the freeze on a $192 million aid package to the Palestinian Authority? What would be the difference in those cases, if there's any?
Well, I wrote an op-ed for FoxNews.com a week or two ago. More than $300 billion in the last year of the Obama administration was appropriated and spent by President Obama for programs that were not authorized by Congress. And you can go to the Congressional Budget Office and look at it year by year. It's normally north of $200 billion, but it happens all the time. And the other number, the stat I want people to recognize, what a sea change it is with Donald Trump versus Barack Obama. Under Barack Obama, there were 80,000 people that were here illegally, got caught, committed a crime, convicted of that crime, and instead of deporting them, he just released them to the interior.
Well, I mean, it's unbelievable. Do you have for example, don't you think it's better for everybody on both sides of the wall? We've now seen two instances where we had the migrant caravan, and then on New Year's Eve, Border Patrol and ICE members being pelted with rocks and bottles by people that are rushing the wall. Isn't it in the safety and security of everybody? Isn't it in everyone's best interest to put this up? And how do Democrats that were once supporting this now justify saying that it's immoral and racist when they themselves supported it?
Yeah, and if they're going to go the way of Nancy Pelosi, then put a bill on the floor that says, hey, we're going to take down the existing wall. I dare them to do that. Try to do that. They would never do that. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely irresponsible. And you know what? We're failing the people that are trying to come legally and lawfully. They're not trying to break the law. They're not trying to sneak across the border. All this time and resources have been spent. And you know what? Donald Trump is not getting enough credit for what his administration has been able to do to secure this agreement with Mexico to make sure those applying for asylum stay on the Mexican side of the border, and the wall helps with that.
What did you think this weekend when the president had offered to have his team of 3 people sit down, offered them a dozen seats at the table, as many as they wanted? He sends the vice president in to lead the discussions for his team, and none of these congressmen or women show up or senators show up. and then you get congressional aides sitting down with the Vice President of the United States. So they want to abolish ICE. They accuse Border Patrol agents of gassing children. They make comparisons with the Klan in the case of Kamala Harris. And they call a border wall immoral and think $1 is enough for the border wall. How do you have a negotiation under those circumstances?
I wish every day the president with the cameras rolling would put Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and those nameplates out there. Let Brandon Judd and some of the other people, Hector Garza, put real Border Patrol agents in there and have them sit there and explain to the Border Patrol, federal employees who supposedly Democrats really like, and tell them why they're wrong and that they should do it without a border. It makes no sense, Sean. Absolutely.
What do you see this going politically as time goes on? I guess now tied for the third longest shutdown in history, but a government shutdown does not particularly scare me, as I know it does scare other people. I want to make sure that essential services are provided, and as far as I know they are, and our military's running, and Homeland Security is up and running, and Grandma and Grandpa are getting their Social Security checks, and there might be some gaps that we have to fill in here, and I want the furloughed employees to get back pay, which always happens. So at what point is this a negative for the president to stand up for securing the borders?
I don't think most people have noticed it. I do feel for those people who work in, say, Homeland Security or the Department of Justice to not get a check. Not everybody can survive for a month or 6 weeks without getting a check. And so, the normal pinch points where it causes a lot of pain, the military, the VA, all of that, that's all been taken care of. Those things are already funded. So want to get it done sooner rather than later. But other than seeing a lot of garbage, piling up at our national parks, hey, step up, volunteer, and empty those garbage cans yourself. But let's have this national discussion on national security and the border. And I think the overwhelming majority of Americans are on the side of more security and locking down that border.
It seems like the media, though, is hell-bent on not telling the facts that, like, look what happened when Nancy Pelosi was having a discussion with Secretary Nielsen and just shut her down. I don't agree with your so-called facts. And Kirstjen Nielsen said, there's not so-called, these are the facts. And the same facts existed in the Obama years as well.
No, they refused to listen to it. It's an embarrassment that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer went into the White House. In the Situation Room, the secretary was going to give a briefing only to have them, shut her off and not even listen to it. But that's what this national address tomorrow night, I think, is apt to do, is for the president to lay out the facts. It just literally just remind people 800,000 people apprehended on the border, and we've got to slow them down. And then tell some of the emotional stories, because a lot of these other networks, when these two the police officer in Northern California was gunned down by somebody who is here illegally, guess what? Many of these other networks didn't even carry the story.
We heard and we're watching this new radical Democratic Party. We saw Ocasio-Cortez on 60 Minutes last night. We have this another congresswoman. We're going to impeach the MFer. Then you've got the full-on canon of subpoenas, and we're getting more and more insight into what they want every day, beyond eliminating the Electoral College, which I found pretty interesting. They want to redo the Mueller investigation. They want to literally get every tax return only of Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi introduced a bill to force presidents, but not members of Congress, to release their tax returns. They want, literally to go through every foundation, every crevice. At what point does the American people stop and look at this and say, okay, we understand you hate the president. How does this help us in any way? It really is a sad turn that the Democrats have taken. I'm all about openness and transparency, but you cannot use the tools and levers of government to go on these political witch hunts to just try to destroy people without some underlying evidence that there is something criminal that has gone wrong. And the doors that they are opening now, they will pay the political price over the long term. I think the American people get it. You should not be able to use these as bludgeoning tools in a fishing expedition to try to hope that they can put and couple something together. And I think they're going to overreach. I think that they have an insatiable desire to do something that they couldn't win at the ballot box. They want to change those rules. The rules package that they just changed, Sean, one of the things they got rid of, for instance, is no more debt ceiling votes.
No more pressure on members of Congress to vote whether or not to raise a debt ceiling. They're now going to deem that. They got rid of that in the rules package very quietly, and nobody reported on it. So there's a number of things that they've already been able to change that are a shame. And I think people eventually, over time, will start to understand how politically deceiving and motivated these people are, as opposed to truth, justice, equality, and liberty.
You know Mitt Romney very well. You also live in Utah. That's your home. We know that in 2016 he came out harshly against Donald Trump. Okay, but then when he was running for the Senate, he wanted Donald Trump's endorsement. He sought it. He got it. And then he comes out with the op-ed. And I'm thinking, what's Mitt's end game here? That Mitt wants to, replace Jeff Flake, John McCain, and wants to be the Republican that supposedly is liked by the press. By the way, the same press that eviscerated him in 2012 for having women's resumes in binders.
Yeah, I was sorely disappointed in the turn that Senator now Mitt Romney took. He readily accepted the president's endorsement. He rode the Trump train through the election in October, asked 3 times his feelings about Donald Trump, and he said he essentially had no disagreements with him. And then to blast him for really no reason is a sad turn. The senator.
You think he's thinking about planning a challenge, either a primary challenge or a third-party challenge?
I hope not. I mean, he was elected to be the senator of Utah to solve problems. His op-ed created a problem. It didn't solve a problem. And that's not what he wouldn't become the senator from Utah if he had, taken this stance such a harsh way at the beginning. And he didn't do that. And I think it's disingenuous to take a turn that before he was even sworn in.
It seems calculated for sure.
Party. Yeah, a bad move. As Senator Mike Lee said, hopefully the Senator Romney takes a mulligan and we can move on, but we'll see.
All right, Congressman Jason Chaffetz, now Fox News contributor. Thanks for being with us.